Okay, we are live, and welcome to the second summer of Meta Academy and Taking Place. And we're joined by Marlon Barrios Solano in
Here I
Peaks
am.
Island, Maine, and a large contingent from Columbus, Ohio. I'll have them introduce themselves, and I'm Rachel Boja. And Marlon, would you just say a few words about Meta Academy, and then we'll pass it off to Nicole to introduce Taking Place and our guest speakers today, K.J. Holmes and Peter Kyle.
Yes, welcome. Can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Hmm.
We can hear you.
Yeah, for some reason the system is looping. Wow. Sorry.
Okay.
For some reason it's wow, it's I'm hearing what Rachel said.
Over now. Maybe mute your computer for a second.
Let me just that's what I'm gonna do. Okay. Now? Okay, yes, let me just close the window where that was happening. Yes,
Okay.
that's what I Okay, so hello everybody. Sorry about that. We had a feedback going on. And yes, welcome also all the participants and all the collaborators of this project. And so we are doing this kind of second iteration of this experiment. This is an experiment of how to use the internet to perhaps to investigate its potential for the transmission of movement ideas. So it has all the characteristics of experimentation in the way that we are also trying to use some kind of an horizontal way of understanding the transmission of knowledge, and also that we are all collaborators, and at the same time trying to investigate how we can create collaborations also, not only between people but also between organizations. One of the things is that we are really interested is in in what is very, very specific and particular of our practitioners, of meaning these practitioners that we live in this very complex layered uh, field that goes from what we call choreography to what also can be called making making performances, and at the same time it has a very specific characteristic of that there is uh, um, a practice of many layers of cognition and embodiment. So I think that there is something that encompasses a lot of our agendas of research, but in a way is also doing in the making. So we are trying to see how we can use this and also create a platform for open knowledge distribution. So perhaps that will be enough. If there is a question. We started last year with, perhaps to say that with a pilot with Nancy Stark-Smith from Bates Dance Festival, and it was perhaps like a very kind of perfect beginning, even if we did not plan it from the conception, but to have a Nancy to add her level of inquiry and many, many years of experience in embodied practice, from contact improvisation to the underscore, and at the same time to have her skepticism about networks and notions of presence was also really important for us, because it gave a whole, probably threefold inquiry in relationship to that. So, and this in this occasion, we started thinking with the umbrella of what is choreographic thinking, what is making this, and then it travels to memory, transmission, relationships, language. And then we have this occasion that is very interesting to start with makers like yourself. So thank you very much for participating. Yeah.
Thank you,
So
Marlon.
is Rachel there?
I'm here, but we're going to
Okay.
ask Nicole
I
to go ahead and introduce Taking Place and the artist right now.
yeah.
Thank you. So first, thanks for having us. We're really honored to be part of the Meta Academy this year. We're coming from an experiment and creative process called Taking Place. It's a 13-day residency where we're bringing K.J. Holmes and Peter Kyle and B.B. Miller and Claire Porter and Coco Loop so that we can look at these very diverse ways of making. And they're working with local dancers to create new work. And the entire process, the workshops and all the rehearsals are open to the public and also open to guerrilla documentation. So anyone can come in and see what the process is, record their version of the process, and each cast member is also going to be doing that. So we're getting their process inside of their process, inside of this process. So we're really interested in exposing or questioning or interacting with processes and collaboration. And so that's what we've done this Taking Place project for.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Okay. Take it away,
So,
Rachel.
yeah. So, KJ, would you mind introducing yourself briefly and talking a little bit about the project you're going to be doing at Taking Place with this kind of framework of creative process?
Sure. I'm K.J. Holmes. I live in Brooklyn, New York. And the name of my workshop that I'm doing tomorrow evening that will lead to rehearsals with whomever.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to hear KJ, Marlon?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So.
No, I lost her too.
Okay. So I'll just text to them. Oh, there you are again. Now KJ, can you say something?
Okay. Yeah, I will. I am here.
You are
Something
there.
happened.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
just lost you around where you were beginning to talk about your workshop tomorrow that will lead to a cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, the title of it is The Athletics of Intimacy, which is a class that I've been teaching for a while now that is a location, a place for exploring different improvisational and somatic approaches to making dances, which include the practice of contact improvisation as a phase of creation, body-mind centering, looking at different patterns of evolution and development and systems of the body that hold different qualities, and different ways of composing in the moment, including the work I've done with Simone Forti, looking at the relationship of the body to nature and words, as well as the work that I've done with Lisa Nelson and the tuning score, and how one materializes and measures imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Which, how it will manifest will depend on the group, and we'll go from there. Tomorrow we start, the workshop is.
Great. Great. And Peter, will you kind of tell us a similar amount of information about what your process is? Eve, can you mute your microphone?
Yeah.
Because there's some, thank you.
No.
I can't do it. Okay, Peter, you're on.
All right. Hi, I'm Peter Kyle, and I also live in Brooklyn, and really happy to be here. Thanks for having us, and thanks to Nicole for all the work she's done to help make this residency happen. I guess to tell you a little bit about my work this afternoon, I'll be leading a workshop or this evening called Slow Tempo, which is a movement practice developed by Japanese theater director and playwright Shogo Ota, with whom I worked over 10 years ago. And I am interested in how exploring time, well, really the present moment. Ota believed that that there was value in taking a look again at the present moment and assessing how we judge things unknowingly, and how that leads to a whole string of decisions about what we do and how we do them. And so the goal of the workshop really is to enter into a process of learning to listen and have a little bit more of, I guess, what Ota would have called a passive approach to performance, where you allow yourself to think about internal intention and try to marry that with external expression. And so I'm interested in, very recently, the notion that we are, and our organism is an antenna, and if we think about the implications of this system of receiving information and transmitting information, I think the implications of that are significant in terms of the quality that we enter in, with which we enter into performance. I don't only work in slow tempo. I use it as a tool towards developing a skill set and a kind of awareness and depth of concentration. And then I will also be teaching tomorrow a dance class, more like a dance technique class, where we'll be exploring other ways of looking at time and space and motion in a more vigorous situation. And then we'll be building a piece, whoever shows up, whoever wants to continue over the next 12 days, we'll build material together that draws on these different ways of, I guess, looking at the body as an antenna.
Really fascinating. KJ, I saw you really shaking your head while Peter was talking. Was there anything in what he said that resonated with the way that you work?
Well, the idea of being an antenna, I mean, it brings me to the tuning score. The idea when we're tuning to each other through our perceptions, how we create through our naming the way that we edit. I think when we bring our attention to the way that we're making sense of things, then we realize that we can start to really play with how we are making those tools visible, even. So the idea of saying, well, we're going to play with an antenna, that means we're making the antennas visible. So it's not just the process of it, but it's making something visible to use. I'm just making that up right now.
Right.
But maybe that's why I was shaking my head, so those words could come out.
Yeah. And can I ask you, you know, it's interesting because antennas and also tuning are quite technological metaphors, okay? So there is something quite interesting there. It came to my mind, and probably related with what you said, Peter, about the tuning or the finding something that needs to be expressed. And what is it? What is it that you are searching? You know, what is it that is tuning? What is it that we are connecting with, or what is that we receive in the antenna, through the antenna?
Well, there's a lot of information out there coming at us. And I think I'm very interested in a compositional sense of what we can build when we address proximity between bodies, and where focus is directed, where the performer's focus is directed, and how that has a tremendous impact on, I think, what the audience sees or what the audience perceives in any given spatial relationship between two performers or more or multiple performers or an individual in a given space. So I know that for me, the things that I'm tuning into can range tremendously from a breeze to sound to texture that I might feel under my feet, to the weight of another person's body, to a design, a perceived design of my body in space, or to some internal impulse that has some other kind of qualitative distinction.
Beautiful.
And I guess can't do all of that all at once. So it really is a process for me, I think, of identifying where you want to deepen your attention, where I want to focus my attention from one moment to the next, and how that's sort of from the inside as the performer or when I'm generating material. But then if I'm standing outside as the composer, as the director, then I'm looking at how the various activities that are going on between the performing bodies can be utilized to kind of paint space, or to use them to find a way of revealing something about three-dimensional space in real time.
I think for me as well that another something else that Peter said was about the slow tempo work was about the moment, like giving more time to the moment, and the idea of what are we tuning to is through entering body as source. Am I going into what my body holds as memory and history that I'm giving expression to, or am I composing into invention and the idea of materializing something that hasn't happened yet? And then what is that place in between? So I'm very interested in the third thing, that I don't know what the third thing be, between process and product, between memory and invention. And I think it speaks to that idea of practicing presence and the moment. So that's one thing about what am I tuning to, is many layers of time in that the body and space hold.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Yeah, also the many layers of time. And talking about time, we open a question to part of the group of the people who wants to accompany this process, and they sent a question of how do you approach the creative process in such a short time? This is totally another different realm of answer, but I think that takes the reality of the context into consideration. Yeah. And perhaps it's related there, your compositional approach and performative approach in relationship with more, is it improvisational, or there is, are you working with scores and games, or is training towards something that they will deploy as a skill. Anyway, so those are some ideas.
I guess it's also the idea of where you put your attention. I mean, in terms of the work I've done with body-mind centering, like the different layers of awareness that occur as we develop our perceptual play, and going, like being born and becoming people, growing human beings, is that what is it that we're becoming? Where we place our attention creates awareness, but then what happens when we add an intention? And I think there's something choreographic about adding intention to the sensation that leads us often. So in many ways, I feel that I am constantly refinding forms that I've already made and studied in very new situations. And that can be very historical, something that's held within my bones that's not my current story, or something that's existed in the space. Like this theater was a stable. So what are we going to uncover about that? Or not? But because we know that, something may appear. So awareness, like Peter said before, and adding attention and intention.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I feel like, I mean, I don't know if your question, Marlon, is sort of getting at how do I intend to work in this short amount of time that I have ahead of me, these next 12 days. I mean, it's, I guess I don't know that I'm coming in with a particular plan of attack, because I feel like I have to know, I don't yet know who I'm working with. And that will be a big point of departure, really. But I guess we both, I imagine, have made work in this kind of a short time frame on numerous occasions, I imagine. I know I have. Yes. And I think I again and again come back to the notion or the experience that I have to I can set something in motion. I can set up some parameters and invite the people with whom I'm working to engage with the concept physically and creatively. And then I have to, for me, it seems best and most productive and time efficient to engage them in the process of building material. I don't only work improvisationally, and I don't only work in that way of asking them to generate material. I do sometimes create movement on my own body and then ask them to learn it or take it and then do something with it on their own. But I guess, I don't know if I'm answering the question very efficiently, but I have to employ multiple different kinds of strategies, largely based on who's in the room and what their skill set is with, I guess, acquiring movement, but also what my goal is. If I'm making something that is more of an open-ended score that can evolve, then that requires a little less of the old-fashioned kind of rehearsing. And I don't say that with judgment. I don't say that with judgment.
No, I think that's the layers of the question. You know, of course, I would say that even the fact of having the openness to approach your process is a strategy that we have available now. You know, and there are many ways of understanding consciousness and trainings of the body, and what is very beautiful in what you're saying both is this opportunity that we have to understand perhaps what we think choreography and dance has been in a with a focus of perception and attention, and it's almost it's a very contemplative approach. The approach is practically start kind of to getting to know what are your hints, in relationship to what is going to be happening from the very beginning. Is a very fully open field. You are aware of the open field that you are presented with. And perhaps what the people will be doing is deploying some kind of learning, some kind of. And then I brought I'm sorry. Hopefully, yeah, I brought on purpose that this word learning. Also, in the taking place, I've been hearing a lot the concept of mentorship, and as a part of this multiple transmission matrix that seems like is happening from the you as collaborators, you with Coco, and Bibi remotely. So it's something that kind of it calls my attention. I don't know if you have something to say about it to this beautiful context that we generate to exchange influences. So if that's something that says something to you that is sometimes really hard to say, oh, I'm teaching, or I am just learning, because it looks like it's in many directions.
Well, I would say that for me, as a teacher, what I love about teaching is that I'm always learning. And I don't mean to sound so groovy about it, but it really is that the kind of interest I have in performance has to do with that exchange that happens with information or material. And like, we'll be setting up a situation with these students, whoever they are, and see what coalesces. But then there's also going to be the performance of that, and the practice of that changes and makes something else happen, and how to prepare for that. And in my own work recently, I keep coming up to this idea that anything that is done can stand on its own. It's not just trying to get somewhere. And if I hold that sense of container, that I'm already performing, it's not showing process, and I'm not just trying to get somewhere, that creates something in the moment that's really very alive and mysterious and magical about theater, the role of theater, and the medium of exchange that theater is. So when I think about like this idea of technology, like, you're a little bit in a delay when I'm looking at you and hearing you, so I have to place my mouth and my ears somewhere else, and there's something that is very odd, and I think that's what I like about theater in a way, so that there is this the third thing, but it has to do with an audience of something that is beyond what making work, that it is about creating theater.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I really enjoy all those private moments in the studio when I'm developing something or exploring something on my own by myself, but it's not the same. I much more enjoy the times when I'm with people together in a room that include watchers. And I'm reminded of this, there's the title of this dance that Eric Hawkins once made called Here and Now with Watchers, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful title. Yeah, I also feel to pick up on what KJ was saying about teaching. I mean, the reality of my professional life is that I've been teaching for a long time now, at least half of my professional career as a dancer. I've been teaching and as well, and I have always felt that it is a very important part of my process because it helps me refine my perspective on practice, and it helps me get better at communicating with other people about how to develop skills that seem of use. And so I do think that there's a different kind of, maybe there's a different persona that I inhabit when I'm in performance as opposed to when I'm teaching. There probably is a slight variation, but I think there are a lot of things that are shared in those different personae also.
Yeah, there's something about being a teacher that also I'm an audience. I'm practicing being an audience because I have the privilege, really, I feel that very often when I'm teaching and I'm watching people do what I ask them to do. I mean, I don't have a cane or anything, but there's something about that I get to watch so much unfold that feeds me in a certain way that I wouldn't have if I wasn't offering this exchange.
Yeah.
It's a reminder, I think, of this idea that to work with who or what is in front of you right there.
Mm-hmm.
That we can enter a room and have an idea about what we want to accomplish,
Mm-hmm.
and that may be fine, but when you're actually in the room with the people and they're responding to the prompts that you've given, all the information I feel like I need as a teacher is right there in them and in what they're doing. And I have to remember that lest I get distracted by something that seems like some ideal that I've built up for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good reminder for performance also, that to remember that the person with whom you might be dancing, all the information I feel like I need is in her, in terms of how I am tuning into her, how I am finding the relationship to time or energy. And we can manufacture something together. I can manufacture something on my own, and that may come into play. But I think it always, for me, it seems to always want to be within the context of the actual things that are around me. And I think that sets up an interesting dialogue between imagination and reality. Mm-hmm. And it's a really fun place to live.
That's beautiful. That reminded me of Ruth Sapora quote, that she said, "We always live between memory, environment, and imagination." So practically, is this interesting everything. It's literally just saying those three words. It looks like it's everything. Environment is perception, and of course, I think that one of the things that we are trying to do in this, perhaps a little bit of ethnography that we are doing in this process of Meta Academy, is kind of see where do you think all these ideas come from? It's something that I witnessed this project in Motion Bank, the project that the Forsyth company is spearheading about choreographic thinking, and they did this beautiful asking some of the choreographers, it's like, what are your influences, and name them and there were people who said like from Bollywood to Kazuo Ono, in the same creator. So I think that if you can think about, what are your influences, or what keeps you going in this, perhaps it's happened to me, kind of these new curiosities, For example, I'm really curious right now of these guys who are dancing with high heels, imitating Beyoncé, and I think that that's a remarkable, incredible form that is emerging, right? And anyway, so what other things like what what are those influences that you can identify from historically, and perhaps what keeps you going right now in this kind of like difficult field, and also in the level of research and for the long time that you have been doing it, or the time that you've been as professionals. Yeah. Yeah.
Take that first. Influences. I have many influences, both within dance and outside of dance. And I definitely feel that my time as a dancer with Alwyn Nicolai and Murray Lewis laid some very important groundwork for me that at the time I don't think I appreciated as much as I do now. As a young dancer, I think over time I've really thought a lot about the ideas that they developed and asked dancers to engage in. And so they are important sources of information for me, and their writings and their teaching ideas. I also have been very influenced by this work with Shogo Ota, this theater director, who is no longer living, but in the short time that I knew him, I came to discover a whole other area of physicality that I think I hadn't been invited to discover as a dancer, and that this notion of delicacy, the value of delicacy in performance, was something that slow tempo work helps me find. I think I also have recently accepted the fact that I am often very influenced by writers, by literature, more than I think I would have thought. But I look back over the past many years and I see that there are many pieces that I have made, or there are many things that I have been investigating in my physical practice that have their basis in something that I have read. Recently, just to give an example, I've sort of rediscovered the poet Rilke and have been fascinated by how he seems to capture in language a kinesthetic experience that I feel like I like to think that I can find through dancing, through movement, but I'm so impressed by his ability to translate that into written word. I just recently saw the Ai Weiwei exhibit at Brooklyn Museum, and there was a piece there in particular that was very moving to me. So visual art is something that I respond to in very tangible ways, and I like to collaborate with visual artists. I guess, you know, there's the historical mentors and people that have influenced me for decades now, and then there's also the people that I collaborate with currently, and I also think of them as they have a big impact on me and what I'm doing. So in a way, they're mentors as well. I could go on, but
Rilke, I'm making a new piece, and I use one of his elegies.
Ah, yeah.
So I love him, and it's the kind of thing that I think that, like, where we're influenced, sometimes we get that. I mean, that's the value of being a mature artist, or being around for a long time. Not that I don't really like the distinction of that I'm an older dancer, but I feel like I'm an experienced performer, and I've had years of influences that can continue to come through. But I would say that a major influence, and it's interesting because I recently just rediscovered, and she wrote that anything that I ever read that had some kind of relationship of that the body was something to experience, not just dance. And I had a teacher named Andre Bernard, who I studied with when I was disillusioned by many things, and he taught ideokinesis that was based on Mabel Todd's work. And I was at a conference this weekend, and somebody sold a VHS tape of Mabel Todd's work with Andre Bernard interviewed.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just like when things come around again. But so Andre Bernard led me to release techniques and contact improvisation and Simone Forti and Steve Paxton, Lisa Nelson, many improvisers that totally radicalized and revolutionized and brought forth things that I didn't know where to put before. And I'm thinking that just about the external influences that are writers and playwrights that have really influenced me. And I've been studying acting, and I have a teacher named Terry Knickerbocker who teaches the Meisner technique. That work came about me looking for the humanity inside of the dancer, which came from being an activist against the Iraq War and feeling I did not know what to do with struggle after years of studying efficient movement and imagination, and finding theater and the theater of conflict and drama and human and all these incredible writers that have written about the human condition forever. Those are very important to me right now, as is voice work, singing, and I have a teacher named Richard Armstrong who teaches the Roy Hart technique. So these people that have come from other mentors that are living and continuing the work in their own way, like Richard or Terry or...
Yeah, I wonder, Rachel, do you have any question or something that you would like to add?
Sure. Well, I have a question about effort, KJ. I was just wondering, you said, wondering about struggle after studying efficiency for a long time. Is effort something that you guys feel is part of your sort of expressive palette as makers? Or, I want to hear just more about that, KJ.
Definitely. I was actually thinking about it in terms of teaching, is that oftentimes what I do is I put myself in the way of the student so that they have something to push into. And that I do that more and more as a way for the idea that we've evolved this far has to do with that we have an earth to push into so that we can move away from it. And that it really, if we didn't have things that we have to like wrestle with, we wouldn't have language. So I think as a teacher, I try to create ways to demonstrate that. And as a performer, I like to challenge more and more expectations, and I really like playing with conflict and effort in that way. I think it's the muscles, like the muscles of the body have a bad reputation because for so many years people have muscled themselves around. But in terms of the somatic work, if you have other systems supporting you, the muscles are there to sing for you, and they need, you have to like, there's something about the resiliency of living that comes about because of effort.
Yeah, I think, effort, energy, I suppose it's essential that we have access to as wide a palette as we need for the things that we're creating. And I think that implies that in our training, we should be doing our best to try to what refine our ability to understand different kinds of effort, different kinds of energetic need with any given situation. And I mean, you know, I have these memories as a younger dancer of over recruiting and working so hard and just, you know, trying to do as much as I could all the time. And there's something wonderful and youthfully exciting about that innocence. But I think in the spirit of efficiency, I don't think that there, and I don't think, Rachel, that you were necessarily implying this, but I think that you know, efficiency isn't only about for me about doing the least that you can. It has more to do with, and I'm not the first to say this, but to do with what is appropriate for the task at hand, I guess. And also, that almost even implies that there's a right or a wrong. It's more like creatively, if we're talking about performance, and that's maybe different than if you're just talking about training a body for living. There are things that we may do in performance that are beyond the regular scope of our physicality in daily life, but I think that we can be clear in our energetic intention, whether that's in daily life or whether that's in performance. And I really love inviting students and my fellow artists into a process of remembering that we can be specific in something that needs a lot of intense athletic energy or bound energy, or something that invites a different kind of sensitivity.
So I think that that was very eloquent, the way you both talked about effort on from a dancing body perspective. And I was also, it made me curious about a sort of bigger perspective, and Nicole asked a question about why do you make dances. So in terms of putting forth the effort to have a life in the arts, and exerting the effort to make something out of a bunch of senses and a group of people. Right now, what is inspiring you to put forth the effort to make in the live performance field? Like, what do you think? What makes it worth the effort? What makes it worth the effort for you?
Worth the effort.
I don't know of anything that reminds me to be in the present moment any more than this field, how to remember that. And that's one of the things that I love about it. And it's one of the reasons why I continue to do it. Because I think that, I mean, that sounds a little, I don't know, ethereal maybe, but I feel, I mean, I enjoy living, and I want to enjoy now. And I think that there's something that happens when we're all in a room together, and it's all transpiring right now, and we acknowledge that we're present with that. I think it serves a valuable purpose that has maybe to do somehow with empathy. It has maybe to do with affiliating ourselves with our affiliation to others in a way that is, I don't know. I was going to say what someone said once, dance is not therapeutic. It's not meant to be therapeutic. And have this little internal conflict in my mind right now of what something I've heard once and then something that I feel now. But I guess I can't think of anything else that invites me to be very present and feel like that has value.
Yeah, what you're saying too, that resistance to wanting to, I'm not a therapist,
right?
But that really fine line between the healing arts and the performing arts, I think, is like I could, as a teacher, I think watching students find something new about themselves that increases their range of choice and who they think they are is so vital, even if they just never use it for the stage, but Broadway. But I think that there's something that theater is the place for social change more and more, because I think that we go to these situations where an audience can sit back and let somebody else do something they wouldn't do themselves, but they have that experience. And I think the kind of training that we're doing as artists is about that empathy, that it's not like you watch me and I am doing this, but it's like I am looking for that role of being that person for them for a moment. There's this composer whose name I'm so terribly sad that I don't remember his name right now, but he did that. I think it's called Being Ocean, and he lives in Alaska. And he moved to Alaska in the 1970s because he was an activist and he was really interested in the environment. And at some point he realized that he had to go back to composing music because politics were not going to make a change, but music was. And there was something about reading about him talking about art in that way that I find really hard, that we're up, that's the effort, is that it's not looked at as being valuable, but it is so valuable in ways that we don't even know to make theater and invite people to find out something else about themselves they wouldn't otherwise. I have a lot of anger, and I have a lot of desire, and I think it doesn't all in my life, but it's in theater. It works in my performance work.
I also love. I like remembering that the word entertain means to hold between.
Yeah.
I think it's when we think of ourselves as when we think of ourselves as entertainers, we sort of go down a road that maybe feels sometimes a little unsavory. But I think to remember that what the word means actually is really, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, like and that also, you know, like coming back to a very, I think it's a very important question of the social and political in relationship to. I think I see those two aspects of this political. One thing is, okay, you are doing a practice that it may have indeed certain kind of nurturing or healing aspects in itself, and the other is how the political. Of course, every practice has a political aspect, you know, of the body training. But then is your attempt, your artistic intent of perhaps have this kind of so many times forbidden aspect of a message, of a very clear intention to say, hey, look at this. So and I think that's a quite interesting tension that I see in certain trainings that want to create a healing of feeling good, and then the other is like, okay, we are actually generating creating a context to hold this experience that even if it's painful and even if it is sometimes quite dramatic or it has you know, things that are real, but it real in that sense that it can be not only about the efficiency of the movement, perhaps, for example. So then it's interesting to see you both, you know, navigating in that realm. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it makes me think of Steve Paxton talks about, like in the early days of contact improvisation, the training of the body was like, he said, the body can endure for decades, he said. And so we don't want to injure joints, for example. But it's not, I don't think the role of that work is just to be able to be easygoing and fluid. I think it's to be able to meet, to be reflexive.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Responsive,
Yeah.
right? To be
Yes.
able to, well, you said it, to have choices.
Mm.
I mean, I think that it's astonishing to me, really, that our art form is not the most important, the most highly valued art form on the planet. Because
I agree
we
with
live
you.
in this thing from cradle to grave. And yet we live in a society where we're not so much encouraged to think and experience with much agency how we live in this body. And
only for shopping.
Only for shopping, right?
Well, that's the thing too. Maybe the Meta Academy, being technology in the body, is a really great bridge, because so many people are in technology and so divorced from their body even more.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things that I feel perhaps I can add to
our lives.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. I just jump in. Anyway, so I think that is, you know, one of our agendas, you know, like when is literally see how our practices, meaning the practices of the technologies of embodiment, that certain lineage of knowledge in dance have developed, have a quite sophisticated way of understanding the primacy of the body in many ways. So, but at the same time, you know, like that's it's a huge question. Why, really? Why? What has happened? What keeps happening? And that you know that the practices that we do are not felt more relevant. Actually, we know that are relevant. So one of our goals is to also establish a much more interdisciplinary dialogue, because what happened is, like, sometimes I think that the practices are so sophisticated and so hybrid that literally people may not feel that they don't understand. But at the same time, what we're talking is when, for example, these beautiful things about the present moment or things like that, things that are part of the already the American or even, you know, the certain Western landscape of the primacy of the experience of the present moment. You know, I wanted to actually also go back a little bit to the notion of the specificity of what you will be doing, you know, and in relationship to, for example, with Bibi, you know, with how do you see, because even if we don't want to talk about age and, you know, or aging or not age, you know, like you call you said the mature dancer, but there is
Experience.
something but there is something really real about the beautiful experience dancing in relationship with certain kind of lineages or certain kind of seniorities. So how do you see both this process with the in relationship with a lot of the practices that we're talking about?
To this week.
Yeah, you know, I know that, yeah, for this week, because this is a quite specific context. If you can talk about the specific, but also I know that happens within a network of friendship and mutual admiration also. You know.
Well, I think I would say that I have, I'm not going to, maybe it's, I have an issue with a certain way of...
I have someone visiting here. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Are you okay? All right.
Yeah, it's okay. Sorry.
As a mentor for younger dancers, I am offering a lot of experience, but I also am continuing to grow as an artist constantly. And I think that that's the thing that I have about the older artist giving their stuff away. It's like I am continuing to share what I'm continuing to grow and live as a performer, and I am not handing over material for the next generation. And I'm not doing that, but I just think there's something very essential to change a point of view about aging, that there's too much attention on it in a certain way, and then there's also a certain amount of lack of support for somebody who's older and continuing to perform, and a certain perception of that. So as a mentor and being mentored, I am continue to be mentored, and I am sharing what I have learned, and I hope that anyone would take that. This week, I don't know what exactly I'll be giving, but I will meet the people and we'll embark on a journey together for sure. And I'm interested in what they want to, why are they here? Why do they want to do this workshop with me? And that becomes languaging, and then we all start to make something. And I also want to make decisions, because I'm not the mentor, I'm the facilitator of this performance. I am I was asked to come here to do that, so I will make decisions. Right?
Right. Yeah, I think, picking up on what you were saying about this notion of continuing to evolve as an artist as we age, I think that also there's something about being students. There's something about the notion of learning and educating that sometimes I feel like can get narrowly defined. That there's an expectation that, oh, if you are someone who has been working for X number of years, the younger student is entering into the equation of a classroom or a stage or a studio, perhaps with some expectations themselves, expectations about what they might learn, but also how they might learn it. And I think for me, one of the things that I keep discovering in my teaching is that it's all evolving, and I can't approach it as a fixed thing that are meeting me on the other side, that they also don't approach it with a fixed notion of what the relationship is going to be. That I may have a few more years under my belt, but that I think that part of my goal is to look at what is there that's around us right now, and how much can we be learning for ourselves based on just learning to see again what's there, and to be students of movement, students of the body, students of the world. It takes a certain kind of, I guess, a certain approach to thinking about learning that is different than just I'm waiting to be taught, right? So that's why these kinds of situations where we are brought in and X number of people are coming of their own free will to be here. They're not seeking a particular certification or anything, that they are coming with their own agency, and that makes a big difference in what I think can transpire in the space where we're working together.
Mm. It's really beautiful. You guys are both so open. It's really beautiful to hear about. I wonder if any questions or comments have come up for each of you for the other person, or if there are people watching there in the room with you. I know Nicole is there. Are there any kind of last comments and questions before we wrap up?
Yeah. And I always been curious, when we have these encounters with other colleagues, it's like, it's practically, what can I ask the other person that I have this opportunity now, and we normally do it over a coffee or hanging out, Anyway, so if you want to share that, it's just like what, in this relation that we are witnessing right now, it's just like, what would you like to ask? You have been extremely generous, actually, about your approaches.
The more that I make dances, the more interested I am in the different ways that people make dances. And I guess that's something that I'm eager to find out. Just meeting you today for the first time, I'm eager to find out a little bit more about what compels you to make decisions that you make. I know that for me, it might just be some fleeting moment that I see and I want to recreate that, or it might be some larger design that I have in my mind that I'm trying to realize, and the pursuit of that thing gets me to some unexpected place, because the thing that I was realizing either wasn't as interesting as the thing that I discover, or it is impossible. And so I guess I'm a little curious as if how you might respond to that, that question. I don't know if you can.
I feel like your question has something in it about getting the answer through witnessing the work. So I wonder if it's like, that's interesting. Like, well, how will we be engaged with watching each other's process with the students? There's going to be gorillas. Are we gorillas too? Right, to come through and observe and absolutely. So I don't know how, but I'd be curious to continue. I mean, this is the first time we've met.
Right.
And we live in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
But so this is exciting. Like just that the meta of us being met through this and taking place, and because there's something about this going, like I'm curious about going into a form like the slow tempo from this master of a very different culture, coming from a very particular Nikolai Lewis culture and your own weaving of that. And I've encountered that recently, these different traditions meeting a living body who's also trying to reconcile the past. And I think I just worked with the First Nation family of contemporary artists trying to reclaim their tradition, going back to the reserve, but they're also wanting to be contemporary with it. And then somebody else just became a rabbi who's a BMC person, and she's claiming something about that history as she's also bringing in these new ways of looking at the body. And I think of the work that we're doing in our own way, reclaiming. So I'm curious about that and how I will see that in your work.
I just want to add this beautiful thing that even you both said in the ad. It is a notion of also how you're reclaiming this context for agency in any kind of exploration of the experience. So it's an interesting thing of, that kind of you're holding a context for reclaiming agency, even political, even the politics embedded in your act of waiting for the present moment, or for the much more obvious aspirations of social change. So that's very, and that's what perhaps go back to that incredibly relevance of this kind of practices, because it really hold the whole spectrum of humanness in a way.
Definitely. I mean, no matter whoever you are. I mean, this is kind of groovy again, but we all have a body, and
Yeah,
there's this thing that we have bones that hold something,
yeah.
blood that is from our mother. I mean, like this, like
Hmm.
we are more than that, but we all have that.
Yeah, great. And Nicole?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, if you have anything, yes, thank you for allowing this to happen. And if you have anything to ask them or offer for us, we're about to close.
Yeah, I think
Could you move the camera a little bit? Include you, because we don't see. Yeah, yeah, over there. Yeah.
so. I don't know if my question can be answered with your faces right now. I think the question is what's going to happen.
Hmm.
I'm most interested in how you all will collaborate with we've set up this very, we've created a time and space for this, and everything's happening, but we've got no ground rules for how you will make it happen, how we will make it happen, and that's in my own dance making right now. That's kind of how I go into the last year or a little over. I've been working on this piece and this process very specifically, and it's come to it that way. Um, and so I guess I'm working that same way with bringing you all together, and getting everybody in a room, getting everybody in one house, and seeing what happens when you're drinking your coffee in the morning. What happens when someone's in the shower and you need to pee or whatever. What's the navigation of the relationship,
Hmm.
and the knowings or the feelings, the energies, the histories that you all come from, and your relationship to all these other things. Some of them are the same. So I'm really you spoke of how you enjoy. I don't know if you said enjoy conflict, but yeah. So it's kind of that. I want to just throw you together, and and by you I mean the cast members and me and the committee and y'all and folks at Meta, and So
Yeah.
I think I'm just really interested in the way that we bring out our own or each other's humanness
Mm.
in that way. So I don't have a question. I just had a spiel,
Yeah.
apparently.
Well, I think that the also the very important part of this process is that we also may try to reflect certain ways of doing that you are proposing. So it's really important for us to listen where you're coming from, because one of the things that that beautiful digital technology also offers is that it has like very uh, increased plasticity for composing. So that's what we are also experimenting. So that in this moment that we are just talking, we are actually creating video material that it may be used for what we call documentation. So then I hope that we can reflect, and this is an invitation to everybody who's going to be working together and collaborating, and we are doing it right now. It's like, how can we make with what we are producing right now, as and at the same time recognize that we are making as we produce. So in a way, that's what we are also trying to do, that we don't see so separate the process philosophy that you have, in relationship with this kind of embodiment that we have now, this kind of theater, how you would put it, KJ. So I think that it's an artifact, it's an artifice. So, and then we are trying to use it in a way that reflects also the medium reflects the content. So that's what we are trying to. That's what is called meta. Meta Academy. So in a way, is like how much it denses. How much is a body, and and ideas flowing. So that's what I don't see as separate. And I really thank you so much for your generosity and ideas and presence. And so Rachel, you have something else
Yeah, I just
to wrap
also
up?
want to say that you guys have been so articulate about the importance of sort of being together in different ways through your process. And that's another thing that is of interest to us at Meta Academy is being together mindfully and in a designed way, and actually reflecting on how we learn from being together and how we can be together online in the most optimized and artful and way that the medium kind of reflects our intentions. So I just want to ask you and the people who are in your cast and the people who are watching at home, which there are 2 people now, but there have been up to 6 people watching us as we've been having these conversations this afternoon. Thinking about the ways that we are expressive in the ways that we are just being together, the ways that we are interacting maybe non-verbally or maybe even non-visually, because I think that that's an important aspect of our work on Meta Academy is acknowledging that aspect of human expressivity and communication and artistry. So if you guys can keep that in the back of your mind and think about that and tell us about it, that would be helpful for us. But I want to thank you for all that you've told us today.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yay! Is there people there? Is there people there besides you?
No,
Is
there are
there?
no. There's 2 people watching right now. So hello.
And is there people in the
Bye.
hello?
Thanks for
Thanks
watching.
for watching.
And over there in the on the stage in your space in Columbus, is more people with you?
No.
No? Okay.
What did you say?
If there is more people there in the stage or around with you.
No.
No? Okay. Good. Yeah, so one of the things that we will do is just like offer this material, of course, to like we're using technologies that are available, and so we hope that have the documentation, and then it's free for the world to play with it. Okay, and
Well,
play
thanks for
together.
helping make this happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well.
Will we interact with you again during the week?
Yes, we will. Rachel and I, we have to meet to after this. We have also a much better idea. So then we will define what are the activities for the whole. I am really amazed that we have 25 people who have signed in for the group, meaning following this process with only 5 days of that we made a call, like even 4 days. So that's exciting. So then we have to see what is sustainable and doable for us. Rachel is going to be in France next week. I am here for this whole week, and next week. So then I'm going to Vienna to Impulstan. So we have to come up with some creative ways of weave these ideas with David and with Alba Noe. We're also trying to invite, we may be working with Chris Aiken and Angie. And anyway, so we're doing that.
So we hope that you'll work with us again, though, because
Yeah.
a big aspect of this project is actually teaching ways of making and embodied activities, and not just talking about our work. So maybe there's a way that you can participate in that way, or having a conversation later in the summer.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I'm
And
gonna
now
take us off
Rachel is
there.
going to press the right buttons.
Yes.
Because,
Okay.
is the one that also is going to tell you the thing about the recording.
Okay. Bye, you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.